Yep.
Hello
Well,
again.
look at this guy.
People at home and around the world, let me get rid of these right here. We're not going to need the sunglasses today. Fresh off of the Hollywood Boulevard, we're here with Paul Gabriel. I'm your host, Louis Tucci, inside the mothership of all things ZBrush, corporate head office, Hollywood. Paul, how are you?
Fabulous. It's been a while since I've done a stream, so I'm excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to what we have to share with everybody. We got a really awesome team of people going to be showing some amazing work.
You know why I took the glasses off?
Why? Please do.
Because we played enough. We played enough in the sun, and today we're going to get one step closer to the moon. We got Pitch Dev Studios coming up today. Pitch Dev Studios coming up today with Moon Kontrol, featuring David Levy, Yariv Newman, Scott Robertson, legendary Scott Robertson. Can you believe this? Man, somebody at home is happy to see this thing happening. Pablo Munoz Gomez is going to be here, and Konstantin Diktayev is going to be here. I didn't even butcher that. That was pretty slick.
You're doing a better job than I would, that's for sure.
Do you see a Diktayev? Well, how do you like the new digs? Check it out. I got a new couple of characters with me. Shout out to my man Raf Corsetti for the new figure. Anatomy tools back there, all done in ZBrush, by the way. And then the great Canadian himself, Logan.
Yep. I'm excited to get going and getting the team in here, and they've got a lot to share. So again, as always, we will be monitoring the chat for you all and seeing where any questions pop up. We'll do our best to try and filter as many questions as we can to the team, but they've got a lot to cover, so we're not going to be able to send everything to them. But
hey, you know what?
Do our best.
No spoilers, but I think this presentation is going to be really great. They're going to go into some really technical type of stuff and really showcase ZBrush in a way that is not usually demonstrated. You got pulling on the Paul Gabriel heartstrings with a lot of hard surface modeling that's going to go on without getting into too many details. I think people are going to be really super stoked to see some of the stuff and some of the hybridized workflows as well that have gone into making this production, this Moon Kontrol situation a possibility. So I'm ultra jazzed about, not to take anything away from the other members of the cast that'll be with us today, but I'm ultra jazzed about Scott Robertson just from an illustrative standpoint and conceptual design standpoint. I think any chance you get to be in company of that kind of guy is always appreciated. So one big thumbs up to start the show off with in and of itself.
Yeah, there's also one other thing I want to add. This is just obviously the start of the season for us doing these special types of streams. So we've got another one coming up next month as well, so that we want you to be aware of. So we're going to be kicking this season off with Pitch Dev Studios. So we're excited having them, but we also want you guys know there's always more stuff coming down. So please take a look at our calendar. This is another one that's coming up next month. A 2D designer, toy designer that's embraced ZBrush, and now she's kind of making her own toy lines. So we got a lot of stuff coming down. So please definitely take a look. We'll share this in the chat so you guys can have access to that. But we just wanted to make sure you're all aware of that.
And don't forget also, if you're new to the world of ZBrush, or if you're just coming back to watch us go through this today for first time in a while, remember ZBrush Central, the ZBrush Central forum, your source for everything ZBrush related and some of the hottest, latest cool pieces of work being put up there. I want to draw attention to the top row and also just in general the quality of work that's been populating that thing recently. I can't stress enough the quality of work that people are putting in there. It's just really fantastic. Like just last night I was looking at the top row for a second. I thought, man, this is really good stuff. So just my hat goes up. I don't usually wear hats, but if I had a hat, I'd take it off to the people who are continuing to push that thing forward and become and continue to propel the community forward. I think that's the message there. Is just, if you think we're not noticing, we are. And that's definitely something that keeps us going and motivated as we continue to develop the world's leading digital sculpting software on ZBrush. And that sounded like a commercial. And I didn't even mean it to be.
I'm just letting you go. Well, let's do it. Let's bring them on, eh? Let's get them going. Let them having, they got a lot to share. So let's bring the team.
Golf clap for here they come. Let's put a golf clap, a round of applause. Once again, I'd like to introduce the world. If you don't know them, we've got, Pitch Dev Studios is here. We got David Levy, Yariv Newman, Scott Robertson, Pablo Munoz Gomez. Orale.
Hey.
And we got Konstantin Diktayev. And I hope I said it correctly. Close enough, I think.
Yeah, you are.
So welcome to the show, guys. So welcome to ZBrush Live with myself, Louis Tucci, and Paul Gabriel. I guess, Yariv, I know you've got a lot to say. I'm just going to hand over the steering wheel to you and take us into, into the environment of the Moon Kontrol space station base. Go ahead. Tell us what's up.
Thank you so much.
It's been a while since we've been on this stream. Hey, David. It's been, I think 2021 was the last time we were on this stream. We streamed for the ZBrush Summit in 2021. And yeah, so we got some really cool stuff to show you guys today.
You guys got the memo, that's for sure. Check it out.
I'm not even trying. I worry it all the time, so I'm not even trying.
Yeah, my kids like walk through the neighborhood and they're like, "What's that? That's so cool!" Yeah, my kid for Purim went as ZBrush this year. I was so happy. You know, I live in Jerusalem, so a little bit about what you guys are about to see. So we are Pitch Dev Studios. We are a pitch development studio, and for the longest time, we've had this project cooking. And it just took the right ingredients to bring it together and organize it and get this thing out the door so you guys can all see it. Took the right technology and the right team and the right designers to make it all happen. So before we show you guys Moon Kontrol, I would like to show you guys the reel of our company. Dave, is that cool with you?
Of course.
All right, let's do it.
Bravo.
Okay.
Bravo.
Nice.
There's a lot more than that we could show. All right,
Great work,
so
Yariv.
I'm going to let the product speak for itself. So this is Moon Kontrol. This has been in development for quite a long time, but we only really been working on it as a team in terms of executing it since about, I want to say August of last year. And we wanted to get ready for the Lightbox Expo, which we showed a very early draft of this, but this is the finished draft of episode 1, Moon Kontrol. It's an ongoing series. And I think we've said enough, so let's see it.
Okay, let's go. Man and backup generator. Okay. Oxygen level. Emergency bags. Okay.
Turret rotation. Okay. Aiming initialization. Okay. Railgun sequencer. Okay. Unit vehicular separation. Check.
With A, B, C, and D engines. Check. Lateral and horizontal thrusters. Okay. Music. My Little Red Queen. Check. Stopping point Alpha 6, request authorization to open door 4.
Armstrong 3, display 0407.
Display 0407.
Armstrong 3, door opening, exit allowed. Good hunting.
Here we go. Welcome to the moon. I'll be your guide to this wonderful playground for the next few months. And 90% of the job is waiting a long time. But who cares? We are paid well enough.
I'm not here for the money. I came here for the silence.
We're averaging one emergency operation every couple of months. What they say is true. In space, no one can hear you bored to death. So, let me give you a tour of this wonderful property. No oxygen, no sounds, no trees, no lakes. If you look at your 3 o'clock, you can see nothing. But if you look at your 9, oh my god, no.
What's there?
Nothing. Strictly nothing. Like, nothing. On the other hand, at your 6 o'clock, you will see a $6.3 trillion construction site. Our job is to keep it in one piece. It's like an odd shoot them up. We shoot at rocks falling from the sky without alien spaceship, unfortunately. Since we're going to spend 8 hours a day together, I'd rather warn you now. As the official captain of this rover, there are 3 rules to respect. First rule, never criticize the way I drive. I am the best. Now seriously, 5 years ago, I almost entered the top league of the World Formula Drone race. Except there was an accident.
Let me guess. Your big head couldn't fit in your helmet anymore.
Funny, second rule. No talking about love in this lunar rover. All you have to know is I was living the perfect love with the perfect girl.
Except there was an accident, sir.
That's it. At this time on Earth, my ex is probably in the backyard drinking with her new boyfriend, looking romantically at the full moon without knowing they look at this.
Yeah, sounds like a mess.
Sometimes life is complicated.
Yeah, it sure is. I was in the Army. 5th Battalion Heavy Armor Division. My last battle was in the Facebook Wars of 2065. Over 3,000 dead in one day. Social media is not as peaceful as it used to be, so I wanted to get as far away from humans as possible. Maybe because I killed too many of them.
Do you enjoy wine?
What?
The one I have left here is the only thing I took with me after the breakup. It was supposed to be for our raiding.
I prefer to stay sharp.
Oh, afraid of being too chill?
Get in less trouble that way.
In 2 years, when the protection dome is down and we are useless, I will buy a house by the sea in Cannes. I will have a huge wine cellar, and every fracking day I will find something to celebrate. Maybe you will be invited to watch me emptying bottles. But I am not sure yet that you are a party kind of guy.
I don't think so, sir.
Anyway, the third and most important rule about this lunar rover is...
Control tower to Armstrong 3.
Armstrong 3 to Control Tower. Stand by.
Armstrong 3, get in line at Sector 16. The Minority 2 rover is not copying our messages.
Merde.
Probably a technical difficulty, but could be an emergency situation.
Control Tower, Armstrong 3. Anyone else in the area? We are already on an observation maneuver and we got a lot of reviewing to do. And our rover needs an oil change or air freshener or something very long to do.
Negative, Armstrong 3. This is priority. Level 3 order.
Control Tower, Armstrong, Roger, on the way.
And what's that third rule, sir?
Never engage with Minority 2's crew. They're uptight morons. Control Tower, Armstrong 3. Please confirm new mission assignment. We are en route but encountering high traffic in the area at this time. I may have to take the Kawanga Boulevard to avoid the 4-5.
Feels a little too quiet out here.
Minority 2, do you copy? Minority 2, please. Minority 2, do you copy? What the
They're smashing the like button, and they have definitely subscribed. There are hearts abound. That was fantastic. A cliffhanger, nonetheless. Watching early in the morning, Paul. I was sitting on the edge of my seat, Yariv.
The voice acting is over the top. We have like the best, you know?
Yeah, that's what that should be a challenge. Whose voice is whose and whose characters, right? Because David, you're in there. Who else is in there?
I was in the early version of it, but no, I'm not anymore. I mean, we have Jake Eberly is one of the top video game voice actor. He's done voice acting for Assassin's Creed and a bunch of really high-profile games. He's now the voice actor for Jim, and one of the creator of the short film of the story, Sebastian Espanol, is a stand-up comedian. He did the voice for Marcel. So I'm not in there anymore. That was just a temporary video you saw.
Oh, okay.
Thank God I'm not in there anymore.
That's really great.
It's really great.
I just want to make mention. I just want to make mention, Paul, Louis, that everything that you saw in that video, everything from the vehicle to the to the environments, to the rocks on the floor, to the bottle of wine that he's holding, that's all ZBrush.
Well, I just want to note there are some environment pieces that we did with KitBash 3D,
Oh,
they helped us
right.
with some of the environments.
Correct.
But I would say that most of the key hero, environments from vehicles, characters, everything is ZBrush. Yeah. And that was that way from the conceptual beginning of the project. Yeah.
Yes. To clarify, because someone's asking what this is going to be a show and a series. So you guys, some people's asking, was that a schematic for a game or what do you? Specific.
No, it's so this is why this is existing. We've done pitch development for studios, for film feature studios for many years. And then at some point we decided there was time for us to do our own intellectual property. We're a small independent studio. My full-time job is at Funcom on Dune Awakening as associate art director. And we started this project in 2019. And we decided that it was time for us to bring it live. And Scott and Yariv and Pablo and Konstantin were really the key force behind making it live. So I really want to thank them for that. Yeah.
I also want to thank our amazing animators and riggers, Jonathan Gaffney and Igor Melinek. These two guys were awesome. I mean, it was just amazing how these guys handled each other, the work and back and forth, and it was amazing. And it was a very collaborative. Yeah, go ahead.
Just to answer the question, because I realized I didn't answer Paul's question, it's going to be a YouTube show that's going to come on a regular basis on our channel on YouTube.
Great. Okay. So we'll what we got Yariv's screen. We're going to hand off to now, and let you take it from there. I know you got something special.
So we have a little bit of a surprise because Scott's with us, and Scott, I'm just going to show them right now that courtesy of our wonderful friends at Design Studio Press are giving a discount on these 3 amazing books, How to Draw, How to Render, and Ray's Anatomy. Ray was my teacher. Scott and Ray were my teachers at Art Center.
We lost Yariv's voice.
He lost his voice, but nonetheless, fantastic offering here. Let's pick it up where he left off. You got 3 glorious opportunities to engage with some high-level content and learning materials at a reduced price of 25% off. So that expires again April 10th, 2024. Take advantage. Yariv, I'm filling in for you as we speak. Just keep the movement going. That's perfect right there. Yeah, Design Studio Press is happy to offer this 25% off. Go ahead.
So if Yariv's voice is not back, I guess I'm going to do a presentation. That's going to be improvised. So this is the great team that we put together for this short film. Where, I mean, it's really just passionate people that like to tell stories, and trying to separate as an independent studio to do our own stories, some of the characters I told you about, the writer and also actor Sebastian Espanol, Scott Robertson. So that was thanks to Yariv, basically, that we got Scott to join the project. I was kind of having like a really massive creative slump, and Yariv said, well, why don't you ask Scott to fix the things we're not able to do, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about. So Yariv, are you back? Or
I am back.
Okay. You can take over.
Okay, great. So sorry about that, you guys. So let's talk about our amazing team. So working at Pitch Dev Studios is a lot like playing in Van Halen, playing bass in Van Halen. You're just, you're there to support David Levy Roth and Scott Robertson Van Halen on guitar. You're just playing, fifths and thirds, and you're just supporting everybody else. So we have an amazing team, a very amazing team. We have an amazing character designer, Antonio De Luca. We have an amazing storyboard artist, Frank De La Femina, and an amazing environment guy, Marcelo. And so you can see that the team is pretty all over the place in terms of where we're located, but we do use systems to organize, Unreal specifically per force. And we chat a lot, obviously, in Slack and everything, but we try to keep our assets as organized as possible so we can work with each other. So let's talk about the main character of our stream, of our film here. That's right, it's the vehicle. So, sorry, Pablo. So this design is by Cody, sorry, I forget his last name.
Cody Miles.
And it starts out with some basic blockout silhouettes. And this is very familiar to me from school because, and anybody who does concept design, I think the first time I saw anybody do this was one of my teachers at Art Center, Feng Zhu, who showed us how I think he made a Newman video at the time that was popular. And so it's just a way to kind of begin your design from an exterior standpoint. If you want to see your item very far away, like in a game, you can identify it easier through the silhouette. So then you fill in that information. And we started to filling in the information, and we're getting closer. We're refining our design, and we get something that looks pretty cool, and really feels like a rover slash, I guess just security for the moon there that shoots down asteroids falling from the sky. And then we took it to ZBrush, and the model, which I'm going to show you guys here in a second. Okay, so there's our wonderful model. Let me just bring it over here. So this was our model that David built, and it was pretty cool. It had a lot of very interesting things, but at some point we were both looking at it and we both realized, there's something that's missing here. And sometimes, I had been at Art Center with Scott like 14 years ago. Sorry, I'm gonna turn my phone off here.
You're blowing up. This is what's going on.
Yeah.
It's
Sorry, it's my daughter. And I am not going to answer this call. 1 second here. This is how smart my phone is.
You're the only guy on planet Earth that would try to take a phone call in the middle of a live stream. Here we go.
Okay, I'm not taking this. Anyways, so we realized that something was missing, and we didn't quite know what it was. And so sometimes, it's been many years since you've had your, my education is in transportation design / entertainment design. Sometimes you got to get back in that X-Wing, you got to fly back to Dagobah, and you got to go back to the master. So, it's like you could ask him, why didn't you teach me that a lightsaber can block lightning, Obi-Wan Kenobi? So when you're in front of the Emperor, you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? So I went back to Scott, and it was a whole thing about asking him, because we were like, he doesn't have the time, he's very busy. But I finally bolstered up the courage, and I said, Scott, can you help us out with this? And he's like, sure, send me what you have. So let's just bring back this over here. So the first thing that you do when you build up a model at Art Center, build up a design, is if you want to get a better understanding of what you're creating. At least back when I was at Art Center, we created these Chavant clay models that were like, what scale were they, would you say, Scott?
They were, fifth scale for the final model.
Fifth scale for the final model. So we built like half, and we put a mirror there. And so when you build your model in 3D, like real world, you get a better sense for how light plays off a surface, and how you have that spatial relationship that gets made. Somehow when that comes to the computer, no matter if it's ZBrush or some sort of a CAD program or whatever, Cinema 4D, that spatial relationship is almost guessed at. And what you're looking at on your screen is a value change versus form change equation that your brain then interprets as, surface is bending away, surface is moving in, or whatever. And seeing something with your two eyes in real 3D is very helpful. So Scott employs the use of Gravity Sketch, which is free for anybody who can have access to an Oculus MetaQuest 2, 3, and the Pro. So I have one over here. This is a MetaQuest Pro, And this is what I used when we were making this project. So I have a little video here I can show us, and Scott can kind of walk us through kind of his assessment here. 1 second here. So we immediately jump into this landing pad, and it's free for anybody who downloads it and signs up for landing pad, and you get invited to a personal space. And then we brought in our model of our rover. There it is there. And one of the great things about observing it with 2 eyes and in stereo is that you can actually try out your model. You can actually see if these distances make sense. So Scott, you want to inform us a little bit about the advantages of seeing a model in Gravity Sketch as opposed to your standard DCC app?
Sure. First, thanks to Louie and Paul for having me on. Fun time. So when I first looked at the model, the thing about Gravity Sketch, of course, it's all about spatial awareness and building your spatial memory. And so like here, you can say I'm in the cockpit, or Yariv.
I am. Yeah, I'm in the cockpit. Yeah,
it's your camera. But you can get in there and you can start to locate, not only where should the gauges and the buttons go, but the relationship to the grips, the reach, like, do I want my arms to be able to fly out of this thing, or how big do I want the sphere to be, this gun turret? So I think the hands-on interactive component of checking the ergonomics, not only for fit and movement, but also line of sight, like all of those things, like where should the windows go, all of that becomes really intuitive and kind of second nature, because you're really just 1-to-1 scale, you're in the vehicle, and you get to walk around it. You can point out things, you can annotate, you can actually just grab and model and move surfaces. So I think, at its core, you can't really underestimate the value of spatial awareness. And it's not, because when you go into a 3D environment in, VR space, you sort of take it for granted, because it's how we live our lives, right? So it's not like it's a new and different experience. Whereas actually, for me, modeling on a flat screen CAD environment is actually a more different experience. It's more akin to drawing in a way than an immersive 3D experience. So for me, it's all about building, the relationship to the object, which I then think becomes very important, not only because you get all these like ergonomics for free, because you can put yourself in the seat, you can reach the buttons, you can check the sight lines. It's like you get so much extra with almost not even thinking about it, just experiencing it. And so that's how we started.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I really enjoy about the process here, see, he's giving a critique to us on this model, and he's talking about here, how would you get in and out of the vehicle, how we're going to deal with the door situation. And this is what's great about Gravity Sketch, is you can take that ZBrush model in there. I would recommend decimating the thing as much as you can. Try to keep it under 500,000 polygons, and especially if you're on the headset, the standalone version. But it's really cool because Scott's then over here, he's actually giving us really good understanding of how we're going to get into this vehicle, and how somebody would get into the back, how we approaching it from that standpoint. And one of the things that came across in this discussion was, well, we want this vehicle to be able to jump, to be able to jump off the surface of the moon if it needs to have extra thrust and carry it. And the other thing that Scott, you can talk to here is when you started bringing in scale. In Gravity Sketch, we have a mannequin tool that's akin to kind of the way that Z-spheres work, has that built-in IK. And when you put these characters into the position of like being in the cockpit or being in the gun turret, which I'm going to show here. 1 second here. I think it's right around. Yeah, we talked about the vehicle with the wheels and everything. And we started putting the characters into the cockpits and started putting them into the actual, we started realizing, well, what happens if the thing turns over? How would it actually right itself? So we were coming up with different solutions on the fly. And then you can take all those 3D annotations with you into ZBrush. So if you knew how far something was or where something needed to be adjusted, You can see it with your line of sight. So you could then make those adjustments to your sculpt. And I would say that the fundamental difference for me as an artist between Gravity Sketch and ZBrush is that Gravity Sketch is drawing, ZBrush is sculpting. So they're very different in the way that they work. They're very complementary to each other. And this is actually a really great workflow, but dealing with the way that he dealt with the turret was kind of cool, which I'm going to show here. I think it's about here, right? So he drops it in right about there. And this was cool because then we could kind of figure out maybe our scale wasn't going to, maybe this wasn't going to work. Scott, you want to talk to this end for a little bit about having the mannequin in there?
Sure, I can. Yeah, this is as opposed to you going in 1-to-1 scale and zooming into the model to be at 100% scale and checking the reach and where your feet go. The mannequins work great to supplement that experience. You can position them; they're fully positionable, all the joints, etc. But then you can start to get your seat angles correct. So having the mannequin is very helpful. And then you can also start to step back and see where the person's head is and see if they're visible for the sort of camera angles that you might want to start to shoot when the thing is actually being animated. And so it's not only positioning for the inside out for the seat, do the feet go through the sphere, all that sort of thing. It's stepping back from it and then seeing the silhouette of the person because they become an integral and important part of the performance. So you kind of get both by having this mannequin you can see.
So I have a question for you, Scott. For those that don't know, guys, Scott is probably one of the best in the world for designing any automotive or anything like that. Those books that they're getting 25% up, those 2 first books are his. I have them. They're on my shelf. 100% get those. You'll learn so much from Scott just going through his
Thanks,
books.
Paul. Hands
and
down.
then it's also, if I remember right, Scott, that's also ones where you have AR and interactability with the camera, right? And it pulls up videos, if I remember correct.
Yeah, or you can go to a regular website. But yeah, there's a lot of video tutorials, like 20 hours in just how to render.
So besides the book, you get all those tutorials. So my question is, for those who know Scott, it comes from a background also being an art center and teaching stuff like this and understanding how vehicles really do work in real life. How much do you find putting that in your designs for you, Scott? Like when this doesn't exist, right? But there's things that you've done design-wise that maybe could have existed in real life. Do you find a balance for yourself when you're designing something in a vehicle where you're still making sure, hey, if this was real, there's got to be like intake, outtake and things and stuff like that. Do you find yourself things like that?
Yeah, I generally default to treating it as real, probably because that's easier, right? Because that's what we know. We know the real world. We know how things are made. Then it lends an air of authenticity to the vehicle when everybody then can kind of understand it. And then it performs well when you go into Unreal or another video game format, and everything has to articulate and move. You have your clearances, etc. But I think that even one step above is that you really, let's call it design engineer to the rules of the world. So I think you start with the world design, and the world design, if it's a good one, should lay out the physics of that world, right? Because you could have small anti-gravity devices, right, for instance, and now that's going to totally transform. Everything's going to hover and float. Now we don't need wheels, but now we need anchors, right, so we can park. So things like, right, so there's a whole higher level of physics, kind of like a one sheet that says, okay, in our world that our narrative takes place, these are the physics, right? So is it a fantastical magic world where everything can float and there is magic, or is there no magic and everything's grounded and it's like near future NASA-esque, right? Engineering, right? So if you're doing the world design properly, it should start at that level and then it trickles down. And then when you get into doing a vehicle or a character, you have a really good guideline that really just says, okay, well, this is the world it has to fit into. And you're trying not to break the believability of that narrative, right? So everything you design, you want it to have support the world design. So it looks correct. So to have something like near future NASA technology and then to have something that's magic, you're going to be watching the narrative going, hey, wait a minute. And it may not be right at the front of your consciousness when you are viewing the trailer or the movie, but in the back of your mind, you're going to be, what? Something just doesn't feel right. And so I think it's pretty critical to know the world first. And then when you start to do the vehicle, then you can start saying, oh, well, we know the terrain of this world. In this case, the landscape is on the moon. So that starts to dictate certain sort of suspension and suspension travel. And then later we get into the animation of it, which dictates a whole other set of parameters.
Yeah, we'll show you guys. We'll show you guys the final. We'll show you guys the final design and how it compared to where we were from before. So the let's bring back.
While you're doing that,
Right.
I want to say,
Sure.
I want to say what you're proposing there is actually like establishing. Even it's fascinating to hear you say that about the design process, because it's not dissimilar in music. Like you establish a key for a song, and you kind of play within that space and that scope, right?
Yeah.
And so it's all these kinds of rules of design are cross pollinated just from the drive to make something cool.
So yeah, as David and Yariv described what the vehicle was, one, I didn't, as Yariv mentioned, I didn't have a lot of time. So this was all done in we did this in 2.5 days. We did 2 vehicles actually. So it's a little over a day per vehicle. So knowing that, I knew I had to kit bash it basically. So I used the mech kit from my friend Min Nguyen, who did the mechs. I think it was, I took some of his parts into the first initial block out into Gravity Sketch. So they're OBJs, you just pull them in and you just start playing like Legos, basically. So the key thing for me always is proportion first. And David was explaining the function of the vehicle was about shooting down asteroids. And I said, well, then we should see that first and foremost. That should be sort of the priority of the vehicle. So from a distance, what is the thing about? Well, it's about this interesting sphere that's held magnetically into this cup, and it can pivot and move all over the place. And so I made a drastic scale change, as you can see. So I made effectively everything else smaller, making the sphere feel much larger and giving it a priority and its purpose. And then I changed the steering pretty significantly in that it has a center pivot, vertical pivot, basically. And so it moves like, if you know what a front end loader is, they have a big central pivot between the front of the vehicle and the back. And that makes it more interesting from an animation standpoint. And then we wanted a lot of travel. So I have these big swing arms. And then as David and team got into animation, they wanted even more maneuverability. So they made the front wheels turn in addition. So it's got a lot of articulation. And that gives it a lot more character. It's kind of like a little insect in a way. There's a lot that moves around. So there's a lot of opportunity for performance and animation. And then the cab at the front is all about framing the driver so that there are interesting viewpoints outside looking in. And then also from the pilot or the driver's position looking out, there's, interesting framework. But the idea was to leave it open. That's what I didn't, I thought the first design was too closed and you couldn't see, through the windows, you couldn't really see the people. So I was trying to open that up a bit and keep them in their suits. And then it also makes a good narrative reason to keep their helmets on, right? Is because if it's always open, then that helps with animation, et cetera. Whereas if they're in a closed cockpit entirely, then maybe they take their helmets off. So anyway, that's kind of the basic idea, is to, attack the proportions first, make sure it's interesting, not only in silhouette. Then when you get closer, of course, you start to see the details. And then, it had an interesting stance. It's got a little bit of a hot rod stance. So it's a little bit raked, just to give it a little bit of attitude.
Scott, can we talk a little bit about what you taught us in school, which is proximity-based styling? Because one of the things that I really love about ZBrush, which is really cool, is we have this feature here called the silhouette view, which is on by default, and it always gives you a flat shade of your model, so you can always see the silhouette. So I use that a lot to do proximity-based styling, but I could explain it, but you're here, so why don't you go ahead and tell?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the basic idea is that it comes actually from a marketing idea that when somebody walks in, let's just use a product of a shoe, for instance, is that when somebody walks into a store, shoes maybe not great because they're all roughly the same silhouette. But the idea is that when you see something from a distance, it's distilled down into basically its silhouette. And the question is the silhouette interesting enough that I want to walk towards that object? Right. So when you take away the lighting and the color and the details, right, the first opportunity you have when you're doing industrial design to capture someone and bring them towards the product that you're trying to sell to them, that you want them to pay attention to, right, is when they're far away. So that's why silhouette is so important. And that's why I put it really at the top. And then as you get closer, other textures and interesting parts of the vehicle get revealed to you as you walk towards it. But, you know, nobody's ever going to see that unless they start walking towards it. So the key is pull someone in, grab their attention. Hey, what is that? I want to go look at it, right? So now they're walking towards it. And then you start to see, you know, the light across the surfaces. You start to see the graphics of the vehicle. You start to see, and this is, I say vehicle, but it can be a chair. It can be, you know, anything. And of course, you can move around all your subjects of this depending on how far away or how close you start to the object. If you start close, well, then maybe the silhouette's not as, you know, it's no longer the priority. Maybe it's about graphic design as the priority because we're close enough to see the graphics and the colors. If it's nicely lit, and we always know it's going to be nicely lit, then maybe the colors become more prominent. So maybe if in the context of a shoe, I walk into a shoe store, I see a big wall full of shoes. They're roughly, I'm in the running section, all the silhouettes are basically the same. Now, which one do I walk towards? Oh, maybe I walk towards the color palette that I like. So I'm going to walk towards the colorway. So if I know that the colorway now is more important than the silhouette, I better spend more time on the colorway than the silhouette, because the silhouette is kind of equal, right? So it's a way for you to prioritize where you spend your time. And then also to complicate things, let's say I did a limousine and I spent a lot of time on the window graphics, right? Meaning I had made these really dark windows and it was a white limousine. Well, then it turns out that, no, white isn't going to work for this scene, or this product is offered in multiple colors. So now I'm going to do a black limousine, and I made all of my effort about the window graphic shape, right? And now when I make it a black limousine with black tinted windows, all the window graphics go away, right? So if I didn't have another layer of interest about that vehicle, like the overall silhouette was interesting, because I just lost the shape of the windows, right? So you also have to plan ahead for presenting objects in multiple colors with varying contrast. So yeah, there's a whole hierarchy to it. And yeah, that's kind of how, but it basically keep it simple, start from far away, silhouette, proportion, stance. As you get closer, you see the graphics unfold either because of the lighting or because black tires, white wheel, that's a strong graphic. Those sorts of things overpower. You see those from a distance, pay attention to them. Then you eventually get all the way up to the stuff you can touch. And then when you can touch things, now you're into the texture of the materials, you're into the shape of the handles, and now you're starting to imagine that you're interacting with the product, or you might actually be interacting if it's a real object, and you'll have picked it up, and now you're getting to experience it in your hands. So then there's a whole nother layer of detail and material and graphics. So yeah, it just helps you to make it easy to design things and be successful in one area before you move on to the next. So
that's great.
So if the silhouette doesn't work, I usually won't move into the proportion and stance, right? So they're like gates. Sorry, Yariv, cut you off there.
No. I was just saying that do we, with the function of it, where is that on the list in terms of styling? Do they go hand in hand?
Its entertainment function is about storytelling in a lot of contexts. So it has to support a basic function of it. Needs, if it's a vehicle, it's going to get me from A to B, or what's its purpose? Is it something in Mad Max? Well, the vehicle now has a totally different purpose, right? It has attitude, it's got weapons, it's got a whole different reason for being. It's not just getting us from A to B. So I think the function is first in the entertainment world, it's driven by the narrative. And then you design things to provide opportunities for either animation, to basically keep you in the narrative, not take you out of it. And then you can start to go to the next level, which is, can we design certain things to perform in a certain way that makes it interesting, right? So for instance, there was a nice, I don't know, maybe it was behind the scenes or something on Firefly, and the production designer, there's these two switches up, and before they always take off, there's a startup sequence, right? You reach up with these switches. Well, what do the switches do? Well, they don't do anything, right? Except that they're there to provide the actor something to interact with, where the hand, right, goes up on the ceiling in the cockpit, and they're like, click, click, right? Engine left. It's like, well, that's an acting moment, right? And so, but it was designed, and so I need a control panel up there to put the switches, right? So really the function is about the performance and providing the sort of startup sequence of the story. So I think that, it depends on your narrative, real world versus entertainment, but yeah, approach it that way.
Cool. So you want to move on? We can talk about, for me, the most challenging part of this presentation. So we did this whole design run on it where we talked about how it hinges in the middle. It pivots like a trailer. And so this was really, really fun collaborating with Kosta and Scott in the animation team, so we can actually figure out how we want this thing to drive realistically. And we'll talk about that when Kosta presents next. So Scott gave me my first homework assignment in like 14 years, which he's like, I want to see a rendering of this vehicle with some texturing to it. I'm like, oh my gosh. Then he saw this image. He's like, that's pretty cool. It's good. So rendering back in the day meant you were going to paint everything manually in Photoshop. Today, it just means hitting render over here in Redshift, which is what this was rendered in. So right here in ZBrush. So, this provided Kosta with a great deal of information. 1 second here.
I'm going to jump just 1 second just to say that the key element that Scott completely nailed on this design is the fact that every angle of the vehicle is interesting. And I knew that when going in Unreal and choosing camera points, it just worked magically. Whatever camera angle we gave to that vehicle, it looked really aggressive, exciting, and not boring. And the other element as well is because of the difference between the back and the front, which we hadn't done at the beginning of the design, and that Scott fixed, is that when we switched between the turret guy and the pilot, it was very important to understand that who was who. And when we switch, there's someone's microphone that's on. I don't know what's going on. It's very noisy.
Somebody removing stuff.
Thank you. That just got muted. And so being able to recognize when we go into the helmet, for the characters that Pablo did, and when we go out for the vehicle that Scott did, we could understand very clearly who was who. And so these were the two elements in terms of directing that worked magically thanks to the great design.
Cool. Sorry, there's some moving going on next door. What I was going to say is that so this is the designs over here that we did, and this was really, really informative for later on. The next thing we're going to show, before we get into any more stuff on Moon Kontrol, is just kind of where this live Boolean system was developed. It was developed particularly for let's see, which one is this? 1 second. There we are. For Black Adam. And the shapes that you guys see here are the very same ones that are in our live Boolean kit. And the live Boolean kit, which is available on our Gumroad, David can talk a little bit more about this aspect of it and the system and the methodologies of how we actually work. But the live Boolean system is very, very powerful. It can get you really quick results very fast. So go ahead, David, you want to talk a little bit about the work on Black Adam?
So the way it actually started before Black Adam, but I was starting experimenting with very stylized shapes, and I was trying to break down the look of especially a lot of Japanese mech designs, And what it is, basically, it's like a skin, and then you have secondary visual details that are done by Boolean objects, whether it's holes, but whether it's additions and things like that. And at the same time, I mean, ZBrush arrived with a Boolean system, and I was simply blown away. There is still, to this day, no other software that can deal Booleans like ZBrush does. I'm not saying that because I'm a fanboy, even though I am, but the thing is that I was able to throw at it millions and millions of polygons, and then when I arrived on Black Adam, I was able to refine the process to design the Hawkman's jet. And what I did is that I created like a whole bank of shapes that I knew I was going to need, and using those shapes in a very free manner by having my own shortcuts to bring up the Boolean shapes. And I was able to iterate, because that's the big thing in terms of concept art is iteration. And iterating shapes and volumes at very fast pace, Booleans, there's nothing's better. So there were a lot of complicating things we were trying to achieve with that vehicle, which is like there's little winglets that are switching on for movement. There were and thanks to the Boolean kit, I was able to do it. Yeah, you can switch it next.
So we've gone on to create many various different kinds of creations with this kit, and I'll let you guys take a look at it over here. So this is the kit itself, and it's really powerful. Has a lot of different kinds of cutters that you can use, and they're made very light. So you can see they're very lightweight. And each one of them does something very different, which we're going to get into here in just a minute, but I'm going to show you guys the actual model from Black Adam. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and on that note, the reason why those Booleans are super light, they have, it wasn't easy to develop because the shapes had enough detail, but not too much detail that'd be too heavy when you have a lot of Boolean shapes like you have for this vehicle, for example. So they're just optimized enough, you know, and that allows to have like an extremely complex looking shape without killing your frame rate, of course, when you're working.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. You know, when you're working at this scale, I mean, you're just like a kid in a candy shop, you know, a kid in a model shop, I would say, where you're just sitting there and you are just hammering all of these shapes on here and getting sorts of different results. And it can make, you know, the project go very fun and very quick.
Especially for a vehicle like this, where you have a set design, a scale specific at the interior, you can work with the interior, the exterior, everything at once, as opposed to having to work in separate pieces, you know. And the great thing about this is that once you're happy with the shape, let's say you want to, like we did for Moon Kontrol, we want to look at it right away into Unreal. It is possible. You just decimate your model, send it to Unreal, and here you go, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the really cool part about decimating in ZBrush is the fact that you can decimate with UVs intact, which is incredible because most packages won't do that. So, you know, this is a really huge advantage when you're in game development. You can just, or, you know, cinematics like we were doing, you can just throw it in there, see how it looks. So from here, let's go ahead and jump into the turret. So the turret design.
I don't want us to take too much time because I know that we have other great guys presenting, Kosta and Pablo.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we have some time for them. But we can quickly say, I mean, what the turret that you see in the short film is the turret that was made in ZBrush. Based on that, Yariv took it, and over the last few weeks has done some research and development and found some cool new tricks that you can talk about quickly.
Oh yeah, cool. I'll talk about these real quick. So, and we'll talk about some 2024 features that are really used when I went back in here. So take a look. So that's your sphere, right? In the original model, we had a sphere with another sphere inside of it to give us a shell. But when you're refining your model, when you're making UVs, it just doesn't create a very even setup. So I just gave it a dynamic thickness here of just about that much. And then, right, when I wanted to add in my Booleans, you can see I can actually adjust that thickness on the fly. So that's really powerful, you know, to be able to decide where and how much information is being picked up dynamically without having to go back in there and resize all your objects. The other cool, powerful thing, and this is going to scare some people, but that's okay. There's the Booleans. There they are. And you can access this by going BK, Boolean kit. We also have a jet kit there, which is really cool. I really recommend going and watching the 2021 ZBrush Summit Pitch Dev Studios presentation where David demonstrates the jet kit. So the really cool thing about this is, you know, when you are laying in your shapes, it's low poly. So you can come in here and you can say, well, I'm just going to go ahead and just lay a shape in there just like this. Right? Just like that. And I can cut right through it. I can pull it back out. Now, I'm going to come in here and do a 2024 feature, which I'm really a fan of. Let me just bring back some stuff here because when I'm presenting, I like to hide a lot of things in ZBrush. Let me just add my transform border. And yeah, I don't need my silhouette view. That's fine. Okay, cool. So I'm using a plugin here by Nick. This is the plugin over here. It's called Nick's Tools, and it's really good. It allows you to do something that most people, when they select their polygroups or more than one polygroup, like they can go like that to select additional polygroups. I've seen Paul do it. He used the force. I couldn't figure out how he did it, but I'm sure it's possible. But suffice to say, with Nick's Tools, you can just simply hover your cursor over what polygroups you want to select and just fire away. So I'm going to go ahead and select that polygroup. I'm going to make a state over here. I'm going to then substitute it for a different shape. Let's say I want to do that shape there. I'm going to unmask it. I'm going to come over here into geometry, repeat to similar, apply to similar parts, and bam, I can just quickly see how, you know, it will work. And because it doesn't work in symmetry mode, it's actually an advantage. So we can really see how our shapes are going to affect this or not. So again, super powerful. The other thing I'm going to show you guys is, you know, when you want to give that extra, and by the way, the gun was modeled that way too, just punching stuff in. When you want to come into something like this base shape that we have over here, I'm going to show you guys two more things that I really, really like. So we can duplicate this. We can apply dynamic subdivision levels. We're going to delete these. And wonderful, two wonderful, really great features in the new 2024. If you don't have it, go ahead and subscribe and get yourself a copy because it's amazing. You can actually hold down Shift and click on the transform gizmo, and it will actually give you a viewpoint from that vantage point of the gizmo. So we're going to come over here to the knife tool. I'm going to use the knife rectangle. And I'm just going to separate I'm going to come over here and choose split the parts. And I'm going to split these parts just like that. And this is what's really cool about it. You can come over here. You can split these things to parts. Let's do it like this. Okay, cool. And the other cool thing is one second here, is the macro that I wrote over here. So you can come over here. We can just select this piece over here and just come over here, and we're going to, where is it? Oh, I see. I selected that was a cutter. Okay. Okay. I'll delete this hidden. We'll do a close holes. Now the cool thing is I can then use this as a cutter right into my surface, which is awesome. So that's really, really cool. You can actually sit there and break it apart and do all those things. So the last thing I'm going to show you guys is a really great plugin that I really, really like that came out, I believe, in 2022, if I'm not mistaken. You can apply your Boolean shapes to your object, just like this. And it's based on your polygroups. So here you go like this. And this is super, super, super high poly, right? Super duper high poly. But what you can do is I'm just going to actually mask just this group over here because this is the group that I want to create a bevel along. Go click in Bevel Pro. Bevel Pro is a plugin, ships free with ZBrush, and it can take your high resolution geometry and somehow add a bevel or a chamfer on it. Don't ask me how, but it's amazing. So here, we'll load this thing up. Hopefully it'll load. Come on. I'm on an M2 MacBook Pro, so it's pretty cool. So there it is right there. And you can actually have it auto apply, which it then uses the live Boolean process within this plugin to actually apply that right to the surface itself. Or if you just, by the way, you can increase the size of that bevel by choosing bevel amount over here. So you can increase the size of the bevel or decrease it. I have it here on auto apply. So we'll just give it a second.
I think we should try and move faster. I really want to give time to Kosta and Pablo.
Sure, we will. Sure. I'll let this thing figure it. Okay, cool. So do you want to talk about the environments or do you want to skip that?
I think we don't have enough time. I think we should skip to basically what we can say. You can show maybe one slide that the environments,
sure,
especially the buildings, the spherical shaped buildings, and also the other buildings that are more like intricate. They were done by Marcelo, who is an incredible architect. Those buildings were then also partly using the Boolean kit, and we ended up with like something we could throw in Unreal very rapidly in order to test it, light it very, very rapidly.
Yeah. So this was.
I gotta ask. Did you watch the movie Aliens? Like this feels a little bit of that, also a little nod to a little bit of the old school Aliens too.
There's definitely an old school vibe to the whole show. You know, it's very 90s, I would say, at some purpose. Yeah.
That's great.
So cool. So I'm going to hand this presentation over to Kosta. Thank you so much, Scott. Scott, you can be part of this next presentation with Kosta. We talk about the vehicle. So Kosta, you want to show them how we can make this thing drive in Unreal?
Yeah, I think it will be short, but we already in real time, okay? And this is a game engine, so actually, why should we not play it? So the mechanics of the vehicle, as we were discussing that, it's a bit of tractorish, like a middle transmission that gonna rotate the front part and the back part. So this is something that we needed to actually propagate to the physics of the vehicle. So to make the turns and to make it look natural. So that was done in the middle bone of this vehicle is actually rotating the front. And so additional stuff to play with is the gravity of the world, because we actually want to get that feel of the actual moon. We should change the basic gravity. And so there is actually too many tools involved in this vehicle that makes him drive and do all the strange stuff that he's doing, like to collide and to jump and to slide and so. But here I'm driving it myself. And in the end of the day, we want to record and play back and edit. So we got a great helper tool that called Rush Hour. It's actually will take our vehicle and gonna drive it on a path that defined ahead. Okay, so I have here a small path for our test vehicle to drive on, and let me configure it and play it.
Just want to commend you guys on the lighting as well. That does not go unnoticed. It looks really great.
It's a combination of lighting and also the post-process system that's in Unreal that allowed us to get that look, you know, that 1969 look, you know.
Yeah, it feels like that.
When you're initially doing this, right? So you guys got the full terrain here, but I'm assuming when you first started, did you just have like a simple plane and then just having objects in the way, or did you go, let's do the whole terrain and then we'll drive it through the whole terrain?
So actually, it's a very good question. And once again, what Kosta has been showing, he's very humble, but he's a true magician. I want to emphasize that because we discussed with Kosta what would be the best system. At first, we had actually displacement meshes that we created in ZBrush, but then we realized that what we could do is we actually got a displacement map, actual displacement map from the moon from NASA, and we actually used it as a displacement map real time in Unreal. So the mounds and things like that you see in there are actually real data from the moon.
Wow.
It's actually 124,000 pixel weight each piece, and there is 16 pieces. This is one of the craziest assets I ever saw, and it's actual moon. This is something that you can see if you like to look on the moon. You can actually detect some stuff that you're seeing from here.
And that was really fun to do because we were jumping in there in the environment and just sculpting the roads and sculpting the work areas. And so it felt like we were actually working for that moon company, for the Chilton.
Someone actually asked a question earlier in the chat here. They were asking if you had consulted with any aerospace engineers or anybody like that in the production of this piece.
So I cannot be clear about this because the people that have worked with those kind of companies are under NDA, but I would say that there's some people on this team that have worked for those companies, yes.
Awesome.
So we have an understanding of these things.
It took a long time to get the answer in the chat, but there it is.
So for Scott, since Scott, you are also a key person, once you saw this in action, was there any design changes that you guys did once you saw it in action? Say, hey, this isn't quite working.
I don't know, maybe Yariv knows, but I didn't do the detailed design. I just did the block out. But I think we generally stuck to the same pivot points, swing arms. I think the only change later that happened was turning the front wheels, which probably required a little bit of clearance or some additional pivot points and things like that. But no, generally it generally had the same vibe as the block out model. It's not easy to do all the pivots working. So.
Right.
And sorry,
something additional that I wanted to show. We have actually our characters inside, and those characters actually capable of driving. Okay, can you see the hands rotating? And so this is actually a character driving the vehicle. This is an animation blueprint system that's okay. This is real time. So in real time, you have much more control of your bones and whistles.
I think that Kosta is living tissue, a metal endo. What is it? Was it living tissue with a metal endoskeleton? I forget the line. I think he's just. Yeah.
That's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah, he's amazing.
And once again, this is pretty fun to do stuff in game engine because you actually can feel it and play it, and they can run it on a VR headset and be inside the cockpit and feel it and get all the overall feeling of how it's working and if it's natural or we are gone to some crazy physics.
It was really funny working with Kosta because he was trying to push me. He was like, well, how about the UI on the vehicle? Can we make sure that the UI respects the movement of the vehicle? I'm like, Kosta, calm down. Let's do the
So in the end of the day, there are some PNGs of the UI, and that's it, and they are pretty same, but it's all the matter of timing, you know.
Yeah, if we had more time and budget, we would have definitely done it, yes.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's really nice. I can't get over the lighting, though. I just really appreciate it.
Yeah, I feel like you're on the moon.
Yeah, it really does. It has a sort of eerie vibe to it as well. When you guys were playing the trailer, I thought there was a sentiment there. It's like I don't usually think of the moon as a lonely place, but for that brief moment, you really captured that vibe.
Well, I mean, we looked at references. I mean, lighting is of course very important. And when you look at the footage from the moon, I mean, it's weird because you have to accept the fact that there's no atmosphere, that there's no gradiency in the sky, that you have, and replicating this is actually not trivial either, to make it feel accurate, but still having it with enough bounce light so that it feels interesting and feels like entertainment,
This is great. That cockpit view right there too. It's really something.
Yeah, third person.
Yeah, look at that. Just getting right in there. I'm really impressed with the fusion of workflow. The overall workflows that you guys have incorporated is really dynamic as well. It's just demonstrating sort of not only teamwork, but also an adherence to keeping an open mind to different procedures and processes. So for that, I give you all a round of applause, and really can't commend you enough for pushing the envelope with where ZBrush is concerned.
So a question came through.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, David.
I was saying that, I mean, that happens when you work with a guy like Scott, like a guy like Kosta, like a guy like Pablo, like a guy like Yariv. It makes the work pipeline much easier. And even the rigor, Jonathan, Igor. I mean, when everybody knows their position, I mean, it's amazing. It flows very naturally.
Yeah, you're not working, you're just having fun creating. Right?
Yeah, close to play, right? Which is really a sweet spot to be in.
There's a actual game, so it needs to be fun.
Space Cadet _1 wants to know, how did you find the balance between playability and realistic 1/3 gravity simulation?
And the more concerns were about the poly counts, and so because today's game engines handle those pretty well, and there is a new Chaos engine that Unreal implemented last year, and also this is great in real time. I'm not trying to run it more than 30 FPS actually, because this is our final frame count. So for me, it's running pretty smooth. We're using all the technologies we are able to use from Unreal, like Lumen and Nanite. So this landscape is actually something like 96 million polygons, but it's procedural and handled by Nanite. So I can't feel the difficulty of using it here. And also the dynamic lighting is something that is pretty new, but well done in Unreal Lumen. So there is actually kind of path tracing, but with shortcuts. And this is giving great results and great frame rate. And
two, there's some compression happening like through the YouTube stream, because I've
seen
it in a different circumstance, and this is not. I mean, it's even more batshit crazy. Like, it looks really phenomenal.
And when it comes to the gravity, we did cheat some of it. It's not perfectly real. We didn't really, but we kind of fine-tuned it to the look of that we were after.
Right.
And I think we have 15 minutes left for Pablo. I want to make sure we have enough time for Pablo, because his stuff is mind-boggling as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, there is definitely a new tool that I found for ZBrush from our workflows. Then it's workflow between character creator and the ZBrush. This is actually amazing. You can take any blend shape, any expression into ZBrush and sculpt it and edit it and get it back to real time. And it's actually a pretty amazing tool.
Yeah, they did a great job. That.
So let's see it. Pablo, you have your screen share?
Yeah, Pablo, it's your turn.
I want to see Pablo.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kosta.
You're amazing, Kosta. Thanks.
And now, without further ado, te presentamos Pablo Munoz Gómez. Órale, vamos.
I just want to thank Pablo personally. I really want to thank Pablo personally for coming on board. He came on at such short notice. He was our ZBrush guide. He went the extra mile for us. Registration's still open. And he made it happen in ZBrush. There you go. How's that plug for you there, Pablo?
Nice. Thank you so much, guys.
Applause.
I wanna show some of the kind of like I would call it the hacks that we did because it was on the time constraint, but also because of the requirements of what David and Yariv wanted to do. So this is the ZBrush concept, and it's actually. This is the low res, obviously, but it is actually coming from Character Creator 4. So one of the things that we wanted to do was to create kind of like a generic look that looks stylized enough, but then could also be replicated in all the characters, because the idea that was, we had these two characters that are like very different. And let me just show you some of the concepts that I got from, I think this concept was from Antonio Luca.
correct. That's Antonio De Luca, who's an
Yeah.
incredible character concept artist.
Yeah, so like really awesome things, really awesome like visual cues, and the coming back to what Scott mentioned about like identifying the silhouette, even within a silhouette. I think it's really important when you get closer to a character. So all the contrast between those shapes, the white color and the green, the yellow, the black, all of those patterns, all of those things are really interesting. Even at this very rough level. It gives you so many ideas of how to explore the design. So I didn't start from scratch. I definitely borrow some of the main things from these type of concepts, even some of the ideas for the heads. So I started with that, and then I moved into Character Creator 4, which is the software from Realution. Let me just show you some stuff. I'm going to go to all high. I have about 36 million polygons on this guy. And I have multiple UVs and all of that. So this is the base mesh, and the retopology and everything was done in ZBrush. I tend to do, I try to stay as long as I can within ZBrush, just because it allows me to maintain that sort of creative freedom, which is, by the way, another important point I would mention about this project. It was very short notice. A short time that I had to sort of turn around, but I have to thank Yariv and David, because they said, "We trust you. We'll just give you, full creative freedom." So it was a pretty chill project to me to work on, because I was doing things in between. So this is the character from CC4, and this is the trick, or this is the kind of like the hack. If I go into solo mode, just showing you the body by itself. You'll see that the topology is not, 100%. Let's go into low res. The topology is actually the body of the character from CC4. So it is not necessarily optimized for the specific shapes that I have in the suit, if I compare it to this one. But when it comes to it, what we wanted to do is be able to adjust shapes, and the animation just works totally fine with it. So the actual suit is just a body, just the body from CC4. And then I just added a bunch of things on top in ZBrush. So all of these things are essentially extraction. So I would mask something from the body. Let's see if I can do that just to show you the process. I will, let's do it like this. So I could just duplicate the entire body. And then I would use something, well, it's not going to crash. So I would just cut things up with either the knife brush, like so.
You're just using that secondary mesh as a source mesh to create the secondary parts, right?
Yep. Sorry, I made a mistake, so I crashed it.
That's all right.
But anyway, it was just a matter of like cutting things in pieces and extracting it to create this. That's actually not too bad that happened, because I was gonna initialize it anyway to show you the connection and the workflow that Kosta mentioned. So yeah, one of the things that we wanted to have is the ability to change things slightly between characters. So I'll show you. The main thing is, so if I take the morph here in CC4, I can literally just take, let's say, the arm, and just make it a bit bulkier. And that's what we did for Gunnar, for Jim, the guy that is in the orb. We can take the head, scale that up completely. Not if I. Let's see, head. You won't be able to see that. I can make the arms way longer. So I'm literally just changing the silhouette and changing the entire body just by clicking and dragging things within CC4. That was the reason why we wanted to maintain that base mesh and that base rig from CC4. And that allows us to just work on completely two different characters with the same rig, with the same body, and kind of like reuse it. So the only distinctions would be in textures. But the cool thing about this whole process, I'll just set it up here. All right, so let's say that I have ZBrush, a blank canvas, basically. And maybe I'll show you a little bit of the faces as well, because that was one of the magic things that Kosta did. They were just combining things together, because I work on 2 different files. So the body itself, that's the first thing I did, but there was no face. So the faces that you see, those are designs, again, from ZBrush. Let's just work on Marcelo. So this is the ZBrush sculpt from Marcelo. And again, it came from CC4. So we can maintain that base mesh and that rig to create the expressions. I think that's the one that I'm going to show you kind of like in real time, because it's the most interesting one. So this is a mockup that I did based on that visual that you guys saw in the video, with the render of this character, right? And that's the idea, that there is a very seamless connection between all of these software. And also, just so that I can mention it, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one, but the textures were done in Substance 3D Painter. And again, there is a very seamless connection between all of those 3 things. So I would model, I would say 75, 80% of the stuff all done in ZBrush. Then I will send it back to CC4 to adjust the volumes, the shapes. And from CC4, you can also send it to 3D Painter and work on those really high frequency details, which was another very important part of the design. Just like paying attention to some of the details and the close-ups. Those things that Scott mentioned about kind of like grounding the design and making sure that it fits within the environment. So one of the things that I see sometimes on different things online is just that because it is too easy to make these sort of like scratches and rough edges in metal stuff with Painter, it's just all over the place and it's like too much. But this one is meant to be like a very hard, solid pieces. But because the rover is open, so there's going to be a lot of like debris and little rocks that can create this type of scratches, but it's not everywhere. So so that was kind of like the thinking behind the creation process of these textures. One thing I should mention though as well, and please let me know how we're doing with time if I need to rush over something. So I can show you.
Don't feel rushed. Don't feel rushed.
All
good.
good. So you'll see that the fingers are all crooked. That was an intentional thing that I had to do so that I could work with those pieces in ZBrush. So in the pose here, that's all good. But these long sort of gloves are just an extrusion, an inflated version of the hands of the body, right? So I had to, because I wanted to inflate those and work on this, basically on the glove, I had to inflate it and I had to spread the fingers so I can sculpt and work on all the details and then doing the bakes and everything with the hand open. So after doing that, I'll just bring back everything into CC4 and then you'll have the normal, just the normal rig. But once everything is working, and this is another cool thing about the workflow between ZBrush and CC4, that all of these pieces that I created in ZBrush, all of the armor, if you will, they're already kind of like attached to, like it has a skin weight to the original rig. So I can bring in an animation. Let's go for body rig. Let me just find it here. And this is how we made the little video. Actually, let me just show you that video.
They can roll it. Kyle, you can roll the video for us?
Yeah.
Kitty, kitty, kitty. You know I should be on my rover instead of looking for you. Why did they bring a cat to the moon? Oh, it's a rat. Okay, now I get it. Since the beginning of this mission, I've been wondering what I'm doing here. So far away from everything. Alone, breaking rocks from outer space. To be on the moon, or not to be on the moon? That is the question. Okay, it's time to get a glass of wine. Let me describe to you the marvel that is my lunar walkwear. Of course, you've noticed the sublime shades of yellow and grey, chromatic marriage of rare elegance. This is not a spacesuit. It's a work of art that defies the laws of physics as much as those of fashion. Yellow, it's a vibrant glow that symbolizes power and intelligence. Grey, on the other hand, offers a bold neutrality. And what about this helmet? A masterpiece of technology and accessories that provides superior protection while conferring a sublime presence.
That's great.
All right.
Dialogue
yeah,
is
so-
delightful.
Yeah, I think that just made it really funny. But I think the real value of this sort of interaction between the two, I'm gonna play it while we work on that. Is that
So in instance, you're taking the model from ZBrush, you're throwing it in Character Creator, and you're throwing a mocap on it, and now it's automatically moving it. It's
correct?
making an
That's
automatic gradient.
and that's a fantastic tool to iterate and to again put the character in context, right? Because that little video that you saw, I sent it to David and Yariv without obviously any voice or anything. It was just to showcase everything is good, everything is working. We can pause, let's say, a video like this and say, let's the thighs are a little bit too thick. Let's just reduce them, or make the torso really tall, or the arms really long, right? And then just play it again, and it works, right? The rig is still working fine. And I would do these type of things as well very often between CC4 and ZBrush. So maybe I'm limited to the amount of stretching or scaling that I can do within CC4, because ultimately it's kind of like a humanoid rig. But then I would send it to ZBrush and I really push things in a different way, or make it spike up or whatever. Send it back, then iterate, and then send like this video, right? Just a recording, like a literal screen recording of whatever I have in here, as a way to prototype and showcase that everything, how everything feels in real time, rather than just having a T pose or A pose before it gets rigged. Now with the face, I'm just gonna bring in. So I'll show you a couple of things. So this is Marcelo's face, which I work in separate. That's kind of like the magic that I don't know what happened up to this point, because I work on two separate files. One that is just about the face, and another one that is just the body. But it was combined. So yeah, this is the project of the face. Obviously, it has a full body character, but I wasn't focusing on this, just on the face. And I think one of the amazing things is between these two software and the connection is that when I send this to ZBrush, I can literally just sculpt all the high-res details or the high-frequency details, the pores, all of that good stuff, but also the expressions. So this character or this face from CC4 already has a facial rig. So I can go ahead and show you how that works. All right, so I have these tools here, which I use to test the expression of the character. So I can select, let's say, the eyebrows, and then just push that up, and you'll see how it dynamically create those wrinkles of the expression, whether I push them up or down. And those are created in ZBrush. So I will send an expression, let's say like this, to ZBrush, and I will just sculpt those things. And what's awesome is that you can send that back to CC4, and ZBrush would export it as a or the plugin, the interaction between the software will export it as a normal map. So these are dynamic normal maps that are happening. But it makes it so much realistic and so much more interesting, even though it is a stylized character. Let me just show you kind of like the expressiveness. So it's a very expressive character. And these type of things, the rig itself is already part of CC4. But because it is a generic rig and you're working with, let's say, more stylized character, when you smile, it would look very awkward, like very, like the smile doesn't feel as realistic. So this is the type of things that you can tweak and change and, make the eyes squint and all of that inside ZBrush to make sure that the expression feel natural. So I had a lot of fun working this way because I could really see, the personality of the character. So obviously Marcelo, it's in the video, in the pilot, he's very, I would say he's very funny, and the expressions should also reflect that sort of like nature of the character, making him feel like he's just a funny dude, and very expressive, compared to Jim that is a bit more serious. So I'll bring in Jim first, not first, second, Jim. Oh, before I do that, sorry. One of the pieces of feedback that I got from David is that he wanted to stylize this a bit more, and it was a very straightforward update to the character, because he wanted just more like a chisel jaw, a bit more stylized. So I'll bring that one and see if we can compare those two. So more stylized, just updated. And again, all those stylizations and those changes that I made based on feedback were done in ZBrush. So I will just take something like this, select the face, going to the lowest subdivision level, and then we just remove brush. Just start from the basics, just changing the silhouette, and then go slowly over every single subdivision level, and maybe use something like this damn standard brush. I'm doing this very rushed, but that sort of thing. So I would do that in ZBrush and send it over back to CC4, and you see the skin is also a bit smoother, because it was more about playing around with the transition of the details, I guess. And so you have like the jaw that is a little bit more angular. I'll show you. So this is the type of update that we got. So from like this rounded shape to the sort of like chisel jaw makes a bit more stylized. And that was like a relatively easy fix, just because I had everything ready in CC4, but I could use ZBrush as my master file. And that's kind of like one of the key points of the workflow, is that everything is in ZBrush, but then you just keep sending updates to the other software. So yeah, that's Marcelo. Let's go back to Jim. And then hopefully we have time. I'll just show you more of a real-time reference of how the actual workflow, how everything works. All right, so this is Jim. Again, same idea. The main difference is that Jim has a lot of more facial hair, but you see his expressions are not as exaggerated. So I can make him, go like this. But when he smiles, he's not as expressive, even though he's not as expressive as Marcelo. And that's one of the key aspects of these, the whole setup of these two characters, is that within CC4 and the things that you can do in ZBrush to adjust, let's say, the folds and the wrinkles and all of that can be adjusted on a per character basis. So it's called the facial profile. So I can literally push things. If I go into editing the expressions of each character in CC4, I can say, okay, these are the eyebrows, right? So I can just push this up, but I can crank it up like 200% if I wanted to. This is gonna break things a bit, but I can crank it up and say, okay, this is the range for this character. I want this character to be as expressive as this, and then save it. So every character has its own facial profile or its own range of expressions, which make them a lot more, very unique. Plus all the wrinkles and all the folds that get created when you have an expression are different between the characters, so they make it very, very unique. So let me just show you what the workflow would look like.
On the hair cards, Is this hair
Yeah,
card?
yeah,
Someone's
it's
asking where the hair
all
got
hair cards.
made. Made
Yeah,
Where did
everything
you,
is
where'd you make it?
all in CC4. Like you can use presets and stuff, bring them in, and then when you can tweak like colors and thickness and all of that, and then in ZBrush you can also send those hair cards, and then you can push them. That's what I did for Marcelo, because the Marcelo has like lots of curly hair, so I would send that to ZBrush and then just tweak those hair cards just to make a bit more curly. But yeah, so the way that this would work is actually rather simple. I'm gonna go to plugins. Let me just make sure. I want to reset this. Okay, so I would go to the ZBrush face tools, and make sure actually I have Jim selected. I don't think it matters, but yeah. So you get this window, right? And it is asking you, what do you want to do? So I'm going to create a new, let's say a new tool in ZBrush. I worked at 7K, but that's going to be a little bit overkill for this demo. So I'll keep it at level 6, just to let you know, like if you were to replicate this, it's better to do it at level 7 because that gives you lots and lots of polygons and 4K texture, or the conversion of the normal maps will be in 4K when you send it back. All the things that you do in ZBrush. And you see all of these things in here are the bases that create the expressions of the characters. So if I click on this one, and you see the normal detail is also on, this plugin is going to create that tool in ZBrush, and it's going to translate the normal details from the original base mesh, like the generic normal map. The generic normal map is going to send it to ZBrush, and it's going to be converted as displacement, and it's going to be applied to the model. So you can have all those details in a layer, which is awesome. You can control the amount of details that you want to have. That's pretty much what I did as well for Marcelo. If you look at all the details on the skin, it's more going towards the realistic amount of details. But with the update, it was a bit cleaner. So I just had to go back to the layers that I had and refine some of the areas to make it a bit more, a bit smoother. And once it's set up, I mean, the initial setup is the one that takes maybe a couple minutes. But once it's set up, you can just go back and forth really, really quickly. So let's see I don't know if there's any questions or anything. I can just sort of cover that while this is setting up, and I'll show you the real-time interaction.
Actually, is it possible to switch back to my, sorry, is it possible to switch back to my screen while that's loading? Because I want to show them what we did from this pipeline. Can you guys switch back to my screen for a second?
Sure.
So what we've done over there on the screen left, that's Sebastian. He was the actor who played Marcel. And from Pablo's model, with the help of Joe Gunfest, giving us some sculpts on the face, what we've done is we've been able to go in there and 3D print. Sorry, it's really awkward for me here, looking at the screen. But so we've actually been able to get a 3D printed output of this character on our frozen printer, and it's pretty cool. So this just finished, I don't know, like 4 or 5 hours ago. We just quickly assembled it real fast. But this came right from that model that you see, and then the work of Bo Langerman here to help us slice it apart and patch it together, and my friend Andy Williamson here to help us with the printer and slicing software. It was just awesome. So it's a great, great, great print. Anyways, I just wanted to share that with everybody while that loads. Go ahead, you guys. Go ahead, share on Pablo's screen. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it's getting there, 85%. So I would say, well, this is finishing the setup, and I can show you real time what that would look like. It was really fun to work this way because it's kind of like designing or iterating while you already have the technical part ready. I don't know if that makes sense, but it allows me to sort of like explore shapes and keep sculpting and add details and like literally do the concept design that I would usually do more regularly. But knowing that when I click a button, I send everything back to either Substance Painter or CC4 or whatever, it would already work, and it's like just updating things rather than starting from scratch. So that was a lot of fun, and again, I think it allows for a lot of iteration in the process, even at the at this stage that everything is working sort of like for production, I feel like these tools within the 3D concept world are very powerful, because you can have something like one of these characters, but changing a few things and show the kind of like the final result straight away without having to go through the entire process of rigging it again, or creating a facial profile or anything like that. It's very, very seamless. All right, so this is finishing up. Just letting you know, like what this plugin is doing behind the scenes is setting everything in ZBrush and creating for each one of the expressions a layer, and it's gonna send the high subdivision level to, I think it's subdivision level 6, which what I set up. But in the final version of these characters, I use subdivision level 7, which gives me 4K textures. There we go. So now it's starting the entire setup process. So as it does that, you see that there's like changes around the face. So it is taking each expression. I think there are like about 13 morphs. And out of those 13 morphs, let's say one of the morphs is pushing the eyebrows up, and the other one would be squinting the eyes, that sort of thing. And out of all of those morphs, every other bit of the expression gets created in CC4. So it's like using blends between those blend shapes. And it is also bringing the details of the normal map or whatever that comes from CC4 into ZBrush. So this one is already the final file. That's why I have all these wrinkles in here. Like I said, the setup process is the one that takes the longest. But once you are in the flow and you're working, adding those details, it's pretty seamless, and it just takes a few seconds.
Did you over exaggerate the wrinkles and things for yourself when you were doing this? Like, did you make it deeper so that the normal map would pick up even better? So when you put the expressions in, you'd have obviously paint also within the wrinkles.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't do that like intentionally. I think it comes down to the stylization of the things that we were going for. So I did push things a bit further than what would realistically would look like. But there we go. This is the final one. Just because in CC4 you can actually bring up the texture maps, and let's say if I select the head. So this is the normal map already created from ZBrush. And you see I have the strength set at 115 just to exaggerate things a bit, but I can just push it a bit more, and that just changes that directly in here. So I could, I mean, this is a bit too much at 200, but I can go 300 if I need to, I think. Nah, 200. But yeah, so I didn't spend too much time exaggerating things in ZBrush. I just work kind of like as what I wanted to create as a concept, and it's like, yeah, this is working fine, and I can do those tiny adjustments in CC4. However, you have the ability to go to layers in ZBrush, and this detail layer, that's the one that you see from CC4. So you see some of the details are slightly different. So everything this is the subdivision 6, all the smooth surface and everything, and every single detail right now is in a detail layer. So you can work without the detail layer and just work on the, let's say, the primary and secondary shapes. I'm gonna bring in the C plugin here and show you what this does. Let's go to ZBrush Face Tools, this one right here. So the way that this plugin works, there's not like a lot of like magic things happening. It's just a convenient way of updating things in ZBrush. So if I click this detail layer, all this plugin is going to do is turn that off, right? But it does it in a convenient way because you have a lot of different layers or sculpting layers, and each one of those layers correspond to an expression. So if I click on browse race, is going to go through all of the layers, is going to identify which one is the layer that has the effect, right? So it was a little bit exaggerated. I'm going to click on detail layer as well. So you can see just what the expression layer is doing with these wrinkles and the details as well. And then you can just go ahead and tweak any expression. So like I said, I'm going to exaggerate things kind of like destroying things, but I can go to the lowest subdivision level, and with symmetry, I can just push this up, right? So this is how I would personalize and make everything very custom for the characters, right? And say, okay, this is the expression that I want, and then I'll go, let's say, talking about like primary and secondary shapes, then I'll go to the highest subdivision level, and in the case of the actual characters that I did, I smoothed everything out and I recreated all the details manually. So I would just do these type of things, and let's bring in something like the dam standard or like the Geo. So this is a custom brush that is based on the dam standard brush, but it's a bit sharper, right? So I will do these type of things with a bit more thoroughly than this, but this will be the expressions. And if I think maybe these are a little bit too much, which at the end I ended up changing, I can just smooth everything out, maybe from a different subdivision level. And I can create my own expressions. So I'll just do one very simple so that you can see the effect of this. Right. And another cool thing about this process is that if you want to see exactly what are the areas that you need to affect to recreate this expression, is that you can bring in the range, and the range is going to bring just a texture map that has UVs based on that region. So this is just being applied. Again, what this plugin does is essentially turn things on and off from ZBrush. So it is the same thing as going to the texture map here, and you see it just gets this wrinkle set applied to it. And then you see that only in these green areas, that's the thing that you need to create or adjust or affect so that it is applied in CC4. Same thing with the, let's see, there's a tool here called Apply Mask. So what the Apply Mask is going to do in ZBrush is there is a corresponding file, a black and white image to this texture. When you click on this one, ZBrush is going to mask by intensity, right? And it's going to give you this mask that is basically allowing you, okay, this is where I can edit my stuff. If I just go beyond that, it's not going to be affected, or it's not gonna allow me to create any details on that layer. All right, so I'm gonna click that, and then I'm gonna click on Update Character Creator. Oh, I should have stopped the recording of the layer, but should be okay. So it's going to go through every sort of change that I make. Obviously, I made this in bulk, so I created all the expressions in one go. But here, all the things that I changed, I didn't change the base mesh. I didn't change, well, I guess the normal details I did, and cavity blend. And then you can change what's the size of the texture that you want ZBrush to export and apply in automatically. So wrinkles and normal. So the expressions, deselect all. So I only did the browse for both. That's it. Yeah, that's it. So I'm going to click Update. So it's only going to update that expression. So you get this error, by the way, or not error, but like this warning saying that there's no way to create a normal map for the teeth or the eyes, because I didn't create any subdivision levels for it. But there's a button that allows you to skip that if you want. So this is going to tell me the same thing for the tongue and any other subtool that doesn't have subdivision level, because obviously in ZBrush, if you don't have multiple subdivision levels, you cannot create a normal map from the high to the low. But yeah, it's only going to update that specific expression. So if for some reason, let's say Yariv or David goes back to me and comes back to me and say, we need to tone down the smile. It's like the wrinkles are way too much, or the expression is not correct. So I can just go back and only work on that expression and update the working file. So that is done. And I'm going to switch back to CC4. And here we go. So it is basically now updating the normal. You won't see any changes right now because it would only apply those changes when I, push the eyebrows up. There we go. Updating just one. And also because I didn't change the detail layer, it's applying kind of like the same wrinkle map, the default one which is slightly different from the one that I worked on. So you see, this is kind of like the generic one, the one that you see here. All right, so I don't know, while this loads, it shouldn't take that long. Happy to answer any questions about this workflow.
I think you're getting some really positive feedback in the chat. People are really loving the workflows and just complimenting you on everything that you've been presenting. So that's really great.
Sweet, thank you. Okay, so yeah, I have let's set this up, reduce it a bit. And let's go ahead and bring in the facial animation. So in theory, if I take the eyebrows now, push them up, you see I have that sort of, those lines that I created in ZBrush straight away, and it works with the diffuse, which is, by the way, something, you know, on a side note, it's another really cool workflow. If you don't like to work on these more stylized or realistic characters, and you want to work on a fully very stylized character that has expressions, you can literally do the same thing that I did, but instead of adding sculptural detail in ZBrush, you can use polypaint and export that as a normal texture. So when your character in CC4 has this expression, you won't see the normal detail, but you would see let's say, a color line appearing as a much more stylized, cartoony version of the expression. So it is in there. So this is a really, really fun process for me to say, okay, this is working fine. Maybe, I exaggerated this too much. I just go back into ZBrush and select my file and then smooth things out or add more details, that sort of thing. So it's a very organic, iterative process between all the software. And I can also bring it into Painter if I want to add some more high frequency details, like with additional normals or pores and things like that. But like I said, I prefer, and this is just a personal thing, I think, I prefer to stay within ZBrush as long as I can. And in terms of details, I have a set of brushes that sort of help me speed up the workflow. So I'll just show you. So I have a bunch of this one right here. This is skin brushes. So I use these ones to help me add details. So there's one that I use quite a bit, which is the Wrinkle Pusher 2 or 1. So if I bring this in, this is again a custom brush. It allows me to create these wrinkles with a lot of control. And I call it the Wrinkle Pusher because if you go over certain areas, it sort of like adds volume, but it just pushes things in. And again, depending on the time frame and the deadline, I might just go ahead and do these manually, or I would just bring in some alphas. But these are the brushes that I use to generate all the details for Jim and Marcelo. So everything that you see in the character, all of those things were created in the same way. And yeah, that's about it. Great.
That's incredible.
Thanks.
Really, really great. Thanks a lot.
I don't know if I missed something that you guys wanted to show, but that's what I had.
Pablo, I think the main keyword that you wanted to add is the real time. Okay, all of those reflected real time, so it's fastest iteration possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the keywords.
And that's also helps in translating it to real-time engine, and then the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and it's mind-boggling after when doing the lighting. I would get that very, very rapidly from Pablo and Kosta, and then I could adjust the lighting inside the helmet with the lines that Jake would have done, or that Sebastian would have done for the characters. And that real-time component is just game changer for sure.
I'll just say that when I'm working, I waste a lot of time just doing this. Just play with whatever works already.
Well, whatever works for you, because it seems that the end result has been quite successful. So keep doing what you're doing.
Yep.
Paul, what do you think?
All right. So I think that's everybody. Yes, guys? I think that was everybody
so.
able to present what they want. I think it'd be good probably to show that coupon code again that you guys got from Studio Press for the 3 books.
Oh, for sure. Let's bring that up. And we can even, let's bring that up for you guys. Show up my screen, please. Let's go over here here we are. Okay, there it is. Yeah.
That's really great. That's awesome. I know people are taking advantage of those things inside the chat, as well as the free T-shirt. That's an accompaniment to go with the free ZBrush T-shirt.
Gotta get
Well, I'll tell you, if you guys ever meet Scott at a convention and you have your how to draw book and he has the time, he does a really cool signature card that he puts in at the live shows that are really, really cool to get if you're lucky enough to find him there.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Paul, Gabriel, any last words
Absolutely.
as we take it into the horizon here of the Moon Kontrol base? What do you got to say for yourself?
I just want to say thank you guys for taking the time to be with us to present how you guys have been putting together Moon Kontrol. Really great process. And seeing how ZBrush has been integrated into your guys' pipeline and workflows has been really great. So
Yeah, the diversity of the workflows.
So thank you again.
Well,
Thank you for
listen,
having us.
Yeah, one big round of applause for all of you, from all of us. Again, that was Pitch Dev Studios with a presentation on Moon Kontrol with David Levy, Yariv Newman, Scott Robertson, Pablo Gomez, and Konstantin Dektiarov. I want to thank you all. I'm Louis Tucci, and that was Paul Gabriel on behalf of Maxon. We can't thank you enough. Everybody have a great day. Thanks for watching.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank
Have a
you
good
so
one.
much.
Bye.
Everyone.
Everybody.
See you.